whether we're talking a florist or a baker or a nurse who cherishes life and does not want to participate in assisting an abortion. People have the right to not only believe what they believe, but to exercise those beliefs out in public. And the accusation these days is becoming more and more fine-tuned to describe and try to convince the American people that living by your faith, if it in any way contradicts the left agenda, means that you are discriminatory. And that's a very dangerous path that we're heading down, and we need to defend ourselves against it.
Congressman Jody Hice, so great to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Great to be with you. Thank you so much.
And we're fist pumping, of course, not because we're so cool, but because coronavirus is here, and I don't know if it's here in the building, but this is something we're going to want to be doing, best practices around.
That's right.
So, but let's talk about something incredibly important to me, and I know to you as well. I just hosted a panel on religious persecution. We focus more on internationally, not Senator Brownback, but Ambassador to International Religious Freedom. Brownback was on the panel as well. Let's talk about it more locally in America, because there were a number of panelists that also really wanted to discuss that. This is our chance. I know you have a lot of thoughts about that. You just had a hearing about that.
Yeah, we just had a hearing, and surprisingly, the hearing had to do with, in fact, the title of the hearing was the Trump administration's use of religious liberties to assault the LGBTQ community. And you just think of the title of that somehow the president and his administration is using religious liberties to assault the rights of the LGBT. Nothing could be further from the truth, and yet that is the phrasing of the argument that the Democrats are trying to put forth. The reality is, and you know this, I know this, it's religious liberties that have been under assault in this country now for pretty severely the last decade, but it's increasing. There are so many instances where Christians, people of faith, whoever they may be, are forced to go to their houses of worship, and they're told that they can worship as they want to, but don't bring that faith out in the public square or you will suffer the consequences for it. And there are literally hundreds of examples of that type of thing.
Well, so it's a very interesting area, right? Because of course we don't want anyone to be discriminated against in the country. I think that's a given for me,
sure,
certainly, and I think for you as well. Yet, I mean, this seems like this is what this hearing's about.
Yeah, and that's the accusation that somehow the fact that people hold to deeply held religious beliefs as it relates to issues like marriage or life does not mean that they're discriminatory if they don't want to participate in those things. And that is really what we have seen across the country, whether we're talking a florist or a baker or a nurse who cherishes life and does not want to participate in assisting an abortion. People have the right to not only believe what they believe, but to exercise those beliefs out in public. And the accusation these days is becoming more and more fine-tuned to describe and try to convince the American people that living by your faith, if it in any way contradicts the left agenda, means that you are discriminatory. And that's a very dangerous path that we're heading down, and we need to defend ourselves against it.
Well, and so it's an interesting thing because there's a lot of accusations flying, right? I mean, one is that exactly what you said, that anti-discrimination is being used to silence or to basically discriminate. On the other hand, we're being told that religious liberty rules are being used to discriminate. How do you how do we make sense of this?
Well, I mean, the First Amendment protects the religious belief and the free exercise of those beliefs publicly. But everyone has those basic rights. But the First Amendment specifically addresses the issue of religious belief and the freedom to hold those beliefs, and that Congress cannot make any law prohibiting those beliefs from being exercised. But when you look at it, the discrimination goes both ways, and the left is not acknowledging that. Their accusation is that people of faith are discriminatory if they do not embrace and accept and participate in a same-sex ceremony or whatever life issues or whatever it may be. But they don't realize that their side is discriminating against us by shutting us down from business, from whatever it is we want to do in our lives if we don't agree with them. Tolerance means to the left that we must agree with them, and if we don't, we are intolerant. They do not accept the fact that tolerance also applies to us, that they need to accept the fact that there are certain things that we just disagree on. And that's what makes America great, that we are able to have differing views and yet still respect one another and respect one another's right to exercise those views publicly, so long as they're not endangering other people, of course. But that's what makes America great. We are watching the decreasing of that acceptance and that principle in our culture today in America, and seeing a great intolerance that is quite alarming.
So how do you propose this gap is bridged?
Yeah, that's the $10 million question when it comes down to it. The hearing that we had the other day, actually after the hearing, I tried to approach a certain individual who was on the other side of my views in that hearing, and was totally shut down when I tried to have a friendly conversation to say, listen, I know we disagree on some stuff, but that does not mean that we need to be adversarial towards one another.
Well, and it doesn't mean that I hate you or that
that's
something
right.
like
And,
this,
and
right?
I was trying to communicate that, and unfortunately, it was not well received. So there's a wall of just severe distrust and dislike, and some would go so far as to say hatred. It seems that is difficult to penetrate.
I find that, I do find that very disturbing. And frankly, I see this on the left and on the right. Basically, people just kind of we could call it othering, right? Kind of the other side. And I see no future in that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're Americans, and we have different views politically. We have different views in our religious beliefs and things of that nature. And that's always been accepted in America. Because beyond those beliefs, beyond those differences, are certain things that we as Americans agree upon.
Okay.
And that is freedom. Freedom for you to believe what you want to believe, and the fact that I'm going to support you, and I'm not going to try to silence you from your beliefs. And you reciprocate that towards me. That has always been some fundamental principles that have separated this country from every other, that we had the freedom to express our differences politically, spiritually, and in multiple other ways. It's just basic American principles.
Right. And frankly, a liberal principle, actually.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech.
I'll defend to my death the right for you to say what you want to say, even though I disagree. I mean, that's the famous line. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, now we're seeing things like Christian organizations on university campuses, for example, are being told that they cannot allow only Christians to be the president, vice president, chairman of those. Well, I mean, can you imagine a math club allowing the physical ed team to come in and run the math club? I mean, no, the math club is a math club. And, you've got multiple clubs, but only is it when it comes to the Christian clubs are being told they're discriminating against other people if they don't allow the atheist to come in and be president or what. It's just nonsense. We have different beliefs, and we need to cherish those, celebrate them, and protect them for one another.
Let's shift gears a little bit. We've been doing a lot of reporting on this, on the coronavirus stuff. I want to see, in a local district like yours, for example, what are you hearing from constituents? Are Americans concerned? Is this a big deal? Do they feel like things are being handled well? I mean, I've been kind of curious from the ground what you're seeing.
Yeah, overall, of course, people are very concerned with this. You can't escape it on the news right now. Every channel leads every hour and every segment, it seems, with an update on the coronavirus, and so people cannot escape the news of it. We are seeing the impact it's having economically, and so there's no way people can escape not only the health concerns but financial concerns that this is bringing to our country. So the concern is everywhere, in my district and everywhere right now. At the same time, this is not a time to panic. We do have the greatest healthcare professionals in the world right here. They're working tirelessly to try to come up with ways to treat this, and the president, fortunately, a month ago started this process to try to protect our country. At the end of the day, we know it's going to come. There's no way to protect a country this large and with this much travel to prevent it from coming. At some point, it's going to get here in a more serious way. But we've got to do the best we can to be prepared. Fortunately, this is not the type of problem disease like Ebola would have been, for example, where 90% of the people who contracted Ebola died. It was lethal. This is down in the 1% range, and so fortunately we're dealing with something that the vast majority of people who contract this will be okay, but nonetheless it's something very much to be concerned with, and people are.
And so what kind of are you implementing anything in your district already to kind of get people ready?
Yeah, we're trying to just the basics,
Yeah,
that's right. Instead of shaking hands, and you just have to watch yourself. We've had conversations, and we're trying to get the word out with doctors and CDC and the World Health Organization and National Institutes of Health, and we are trying our best to distribute information as best we can. But the number one thing people can do is just common sense. Wearing of the mask in this case does not prevent contracting this disease. It helps from spreading it or other diseases, but so wearing a mask is not the answer, but cleanliness is, washing your hands, being careful along those type of things.
Sneezing into your armpits, I've been told. That's a really good one to help,
to prevent the spread.
Okay. Well, no, that's great. Any final words before we finish up?
I just thank you for all you're doing. It's always an honor to be with you.
Well, thank you very much, Congressman Hice. Great to talk to you.
Likewise.